Commissioner Aaron Whiteley. And uh, Commissioner, would you please introduce yourself this morning for us?
Yes, sir. So first of all, thank you, Mr. Irwin, for having me. My name is Aaron Whiteley. My friends call me ADOT. I am the Chatham County Board of Commissioners 6th District Representative. I represent the South Side and Southwest Chatham County. I also serve as the chairman of the Democratic Party of Chatham County, and am excited to be here. So I appreciate the invitation. Looking forward to our discussion.
Well, we got a big one for us this morning. It's going to be wild. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be newsworthy. So we're getting ready to pump it up this morning. Everything, all the news that's going on and things that's happening. Yesterday, it stormed like I don't know what. It was a big storm in Savannah, Georgia, and that's the wrong one. It flooded mostly all over Savannah yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the infrastructure is a problem that we have, and we're gonna talk a little bit about that, and we're gonna talk more so about the Democratic Party, and what do y'all think about Kamala Harris and her being selected as the person to run for president?
Yes,
So I'm gonna start with that first. Let's go with that first.
okay.
So what's your take first, and then the Democratic Party take first?
Oh, well, my take is the Democratic take, in that we're very excited that Vice President Harris is in the race. I really think that she has brought a lot of energy, and that is evidenced by fundraising goal records being shattered, by the amount of kinetic activity that we're seeing in our community now. I think it's a great thing, understanding that with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, that really frustrated a lot of women and men, but especially women in our community. When we talk about our vulnerable communities, their rights and their lifestyles are on the ballot. And so having a candidate like Vice President Harris be on the actual ticket is great. I think America is ready for a woman president, and for the first woman president to be a Black woman would be even greater. But, race aside, getting outside of the identity politics, Project 2025 is a tremendous threat to vulnerable communities, to minority communities, to those disadvantaged communities in our nation. And with that being the case, we cannot allow, by any means, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to be elected and for them to advance that agenda, which ultimately is hitting the rewind button on human rights, on civil rights in America, on diversity, equity, and inclusion in America. So I think we have the right candidate in Vice President Kamala Harris. I'm excited to stand with her, honored to stand with her. I have had the opportunity to speak with her in person and understand what she's about. And I'm looking forward to these next 100 days.
Well, I'm glad to know that. All right, you're gonna have a back feed
for just a second. Let me get out of here with this back feed. All right, I think I got rid of it then. Well, do you think that with having Vice President Harris on the ticket, do you think it will spark and ignite the younger vote?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when we look at the options that we had in President Donald Trump and President Joe Biden, first of all, I want to just show my admiration for President Joe Biden and showing a tremendous level of humility and selfless service by stepping down. And we appreciate him for that. But with that, having him and Donald Trump on the ballot, it was pretty much the same options that America has had so many presidential elections, which is two stale pale males. And so you've got the total opposite. You've got Vice President Harris, who's a younger Black woman, comes from an HBCU, who served as a attorney general, who served as a prosecutor. And then you have Donald Trump, who serves as the total antithesis of what Vice President Harris is. So I think that is very energizing. I mean, to have this level of options is unprecedented. You know, when we look at history, I mean, we've only had one woman run, that was Hillary Clinton, whose husband wasn't president. But Kamala Harris, I think, represents so many cross sections of our nation, and I'm excited to see how this race goes. And I think that, and I'm hopeful that her being on the ballot and whomever her vice president pick is will energize folks to help some of us down ballot candidates, such as myself. I'm on the ballot in November as well. So at this point, I'm very hopeful that she's going to energize younger folks. I'm 40 years old. My peers are very excited. And speaking with my daughters who are 18, 17, they're very excited, and their peers are very excited. So, at least as I sample my sphere of influence, if you will, she has energized it. And again, I think the data doesn't lie. I mean, to raise 81 million in a matter of hours, says a lot. The fact that all of the major entities, AFL-CIO, major organizations have endorsed her already. She has already, unofficially gathered all the delegates needed to support her as being the nominee. I think the energy is there, and I think this is exactly what the Democratic Party needed to get things really rolling for this election cycle, because, we've had a lot of rain, and that rain is, I just like to think that rain washed away the voter apathy.
Well, locally, how do you think? Locally that it will pull the Democratic Party together locally also?
You know what? I tell you what, I'd like to dig back into that. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, I'll gladly answer that question, Mr. Irwin.
All right, with you.
Need your garments cleaned with care and with a professional touch? Then bring them to One Price Cleaners in Garden City at the Old Farmers Market on Highway 80. Service you can count on.
Hello, I'm Richard Coleman, and I'm running for the office of Sheriff of Chatham County. And when I'm elected, I promise to inspect what I expect. Chatham County, it's time for a change, and that change is me, Richard Coleman.
All right, we'll be right back with you. Now, you can answer that question.
Yes, sir. So I do think, and it has already energized the local party. We've gotten a number of phone calls, a number of messages of folks asking how they could help. So, again, understanding that we have to unite under a common goal. I think the common goal is ensuring that Donald Trump does not get back into the White House. I believe that this can unite the Democratic Party here locally. Now, we can get into so many other different nuances as it relates to the Democratic Party. What I can say as the chairman of the Democratic Party here locally, my goal has been to, create the umbrella and broaden the umbrella to make sure that folks who are Democrats, whether you consider yourself a moderate, whether you consider yourself a far left wing or whatever it may be, I want you to know that you have a home at the Democratic Party. We can debate all the how we get to the goal in our subcommittee meetings, but ultimately we've got to work together. We have to put our pride aside. We have to put our personal agendas aside to make sure that we do not allow these J.D. Vance and Donald Trump to get into the White House, because what that does is opens the door for Project 2025. And I've read some of Project 2025. And again, if you think life is bad now, especially for our vulnerable communities, you haven't read Project 2025. So I like to think that it will unite us locally, and everybody's welcome. As I've said before, I'll say it here publicly. I don't care if you what clique you with, what crew you with. If you are willing to sign that declaration form saying that you are a Democrat, then we need your help at the Democratic Party of Chatham County, and we are working directly with the Biden campaign. Some may know the first Biden headquarters campaign office was open here in Savannah, in the state of Georgia. The first Biden campaign office in the state of Georgia was open right here in Savannah, in that very building that you're in, Mr. Irwin. They're sharing an office with us. We are working with whomever wants to work with us to get Democrats elected, and that's what I'm about.
Okay, so it's going from Biden now to Harris's office, right?
Yes, sir. So the Harris and question mark office. Looking forward to see again who is on that ticket. Of course, a lot of different names. I have an unconventional idea of who should be selected, but some Democrats might not like what I have to say. Some of my fellow Democrats might not like who I think we should pick.
Well, I hear you. Well, we all at Chatham for our own opinion.
Yes.
But tell me, what do you know about Vance?
I don't know too much. I know that JD Vance he's young, I believe, congressman, if not senator. I know that at one point there's video and footage of him saying he's a never Trumper, and then I guess when the kitchen got hot enough, he became a Trumper. And the kitchen got hot enough to bake his skin orange. Excuse me. So now he is a Trumper. I know that he doesn't have much experience when it comes to coalition building in government, that is. So I think that that's really going to hurt him, especially if there's a debate. I'd love to hear what he has to say about foreign policy. I doubt that he has any true understanding of it. But I don't know too much more about him except that he is co-signing Project 25. He has gone on record and saying a lot of things, such as women should stay in abusive relationships and so on and so forth. And it seems like he is willing to continue to peddle the chauvinistic rhetoric that Project 2025 is breeding. And we don't need somebody like him as the second in line to leadership in our nation.
Right. I agree with you on that. Until his selection, I never heard of it.
That part. And so, again, I think the Republicans are going to have an uphill battle trying to win some key states. But again, a lot of that's going to be contingent upon who Vice President Harris chooses as her running mate. So we've got a lot to wait and see. I jokingly say, here we are in this soap opera we call our life in America. And I'm ready for the next episode because, again, I want to know who's running with Vice President Harris. And, again, the wheels are already turning. The fundraising wheels are already turning, so we're excited.
Okay. Well, I was reading just before we got on the air an article. Joe Manchin said that the Democratic Party is nothing like it was when he grew up. And I want to know what was it? Do you see the difference in the change? Do you see the change in the Democratic Party?
Well, so let me. I don't think I'm necessarily qualified to answer that from his perspective, right? Because he's a lot older than me, so he's seen the party when I wasn't even thinking about politics, But when I do think about how the party was, if we go back to Clinton to where it is now, I think the party is a lot different. And with that, I think there's a lot more inclusivity in the party. I think that there is a lot more focus on, our marginalized members of the party. And to some, they don't like that. Going to speaking on Joe Manchin, that's who personally I think should be considered to some degree as a vice presidential candidate. And the reason I say that, as an independent, it would shock the world, but it would be able to unite moderate, a balanced ticket. Because one of the things we have to fight now is a narrative of the Democratic Party being far left. I don't think that we are that. There are members of our coalition who are like that, are far left, and everybody's entitled, like you said, to their own opinions. But to say that the Democratic Party isn't what it used to be, I mean, I think that's a fair assumption when we look at how the Democratic Party gained so many black members, for example. The Democratic Party was not the party of freedom and equality back in the day. So, yeah, he's right. Now the Democratic is.
Well, Clyburn says that he sees the change in it, and the change is a good change.
Yep.
Time itself bring about changes. We can't stay the same all the time.
Right.
So, I think a lot of people want it to be the same. Excuse me. A lot of people want it to be the same, but it can't stay the same. We have to make the changes. Well, we talked about the vice president. Let's talk just a little bit, and let's see what time is it. 17. Okay, let's talk just a little bit about the infrastructure and what's going on in the infrastructure in Chatham County.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So, I mean, there's so much to talk about. I mean, especially like you talked about earlier, the immense rain that we saw yesterday just highlighted a lot of the drainage issues that we have. A big chunk of the drainage challenges fall in the lap of the county. The county does have a county-wide drainage basin study taking place right now. The drainage issues have not been are not new. We've known about it. We've been working on it. They're very expensive to fix and address, but with all the new development taking place, it becomes even more pivotal for us to address some of the drainage challenges. When we heard about T-Splosh, for example, T-Splosh was going to generate some revenue that would have allowed us to address some of the drainage issues that directly affect roadways. Because T-Splosh, transportation splosh, can only be used to help transportation projects in one way or another. So the challenge that we are at now is truly identifying. I think we have a general good grasp of where the drainage challenges are in our county, but we have to find a way to allocate the resources to address it. And that's not easy. Because again, like I said, it's not a cheap fix. So how do we get that money? Do we raise taxes? I think some will say, well, we cut certain programs or cut certain areas in the budget to address it. There has been Splosh. Splosh initially, upon its inception here in Chatham County, was used to fix roadways and things of that nature. But when it comes to that, excuse me, when it comes to the drainage issue, we still got a lot of work to do. When it comes to our roadways and bridges, thanks to this administration, the Biden and Harris administration, we've gotten a lot of money. The state has gotten a lot of money to address some of our infrastructure challenges. We have bridges that have not been replaced. I know some of us are happy to see the Dean Forest Bridge get replaced. I don't know about y'all, but I used to feel it wiggle and kind of bounce around when I was sitting on it. Very unsettling feeling. And so, that is just another highlight of what this administration has done in taking the needs of America and addressing them one need at a time. So I'm excited to see what else comes. I know that we at the county level are working on some other infrastructure issues. We're also working with the city of Savannah, city of Pooler, city of Port Worth in one way or another to try to address some of the infrastructure issues. We have a big traffic study going on right now, for example, on Highway 17 from the Bryan County line all the way to 516. So we can look at what we could do with our roadways on 17. So your government, your local government is really paying attention to our infrastructure needs. And thanks to our federal government and our state government increasing some money, the state government increased LMIG money, which is money for roadways and infrastructure. So I think infrastructure is definitely one of those top priorities of local and state government and federal government. And we're seeing it get repaired in some way or another. But that is not to say that we need to find some ways to fix the drainage issues fast. Too many cars are getting flooded out. Too many people are getting stranded during heavy rains. And I mean, we're in the year 2024. We shouldn't be having that now.
Well, you know, when you said something that came to mind, you said that they're giving you money to fix the roadways. But when a roadway is flooded because of the drainage system, shouldn't some of that money go toward that too?
Yeah. So let me be clear. You have LMIG money, which is primarily for roadways, but then there are other dollars that we could use for capital projects that affect drainage. Again, the way that we're paying for this drainage study is through federal grant. So you're absolutely right. The money has to be spent wisely. What we as local government have to do is make sure that the money that is allocated to us, whether it come from the state or from the feds, that we are meeting all the markers that they set in place for it to meet, right? So that being the case, yeah, let's say the feds give us $10 million for roadways. Well, if we misappropriate that money to try to take care of a little something else, then we'll end up having to pay that money back, which becomes a burden on the local taxpayers. So we're doing everything we can to find monies to help with our drainage issues, to help, again, as we talk about resiliency and preparation for harsher storms, for harsher weather. All of that is in the mix, and we're being as creative as we can to address that. One thing I will say, as it relates to the city of Savannah, some of those areas that are flooding that fall within the jurisdiction of the city of Savannah is going to fall under the city of Savannah to try to fix. That does not mean that we at the county are not willing to work with them in some way or another, to partner in some way or another, because the city of Savannah resident is a Chatham County resident, but they have to take the lead on that. So I can't speak to what they're doing as it relates to areas. I think of like Abercorn and Duran and stuff like that. I can't speak to what they're doing, but I do know that they have been discussing it to some degree or another. I don't know what the details are, though.
Okay. At our last time we spoke, we talked about the youth programs, and how is that going?
Yeah, I mean, youth programs in Chatham County are going well. I talked about, when you and I spoke, I was telling you about how proud I am of the Youth Court initiative. That was an initiative that I started my first year in office. We partnered with the Savannah Chatham County Public School System and the Mediation Center to create a court for youth by youth. The long-term goal is to get this program into juvenile court, so it now becomes a diversion program. As it stands now, the program is utilized in the school system. We have 5 different schools that we're working with. Mercer Middle is one of them, Savannah High, Savannah Early College, Jenkins, and Johnson are the schools that we're working with. And basically, if there are certain occurrences or there are certain pieces of the code of conduct that fall under the youth court initiative, meaning that if, for example, excessive tardiness to school is something that can be referred to youth court. So instead of children being suspended, they go to youth court. Their case is heard by a jury of their peers from a different school, that is, but a jury of their peers, a judge who is their peer, their lawyer, if you will, or advocate is their peer. And once the case is heard, the jury makes a determination, and they determine what the punishment will be. Once that punishment is carried out, then the student is back on track without any type of negative action or notes in their record. And so that's how it's operating in the school system now. Again, the goal is to get it into the juvenile court where, maybe something is a petty shoplifting or something like that. If it's a first offense for a youth, will now be heard by a jury of their peers. And should they carry out whatever the disposition of that jury and that judge, who is also their peer, is, then it won't go on their record. So we're trying to keep kids out of the school to prison pipeline. That's one of the things that I'm very excited about. Another thing that I'm proud to say, I spearheaded the change in our revenue ordinance, the Chatham County Revenue Ordinance. Prior to this change, if a organization wanted to hold practice on any of our fields, Chatham County fields, that is, they would have to go and pay to rent the space if they weren't associated with our recreation program. With that change, I worked with my colleagues to change it to where if a organization is comprised of 80% or more of Chatham County citizens, then they can utilize our fields as long as they're available and as long as they reserve them in enough time for 2 hours for free during the daytime. Of course, we can't do it during the nighttime because we do have to pay somebody to actually go and cut on the lights and so on and so forth. But as I've said in the past, youth engagement is one of my big focuses because if we're not engaging and investing in our youth now, we're going to pay for them later. And we see that in our jail right now. Our jail in the sheriff's department is one of our biggest budgets, or the biggest lines or block of lines on our budget. And I don't like that. So I think that we have to try to attack things at the root. And, overall, we have to have a unrelenting assault on poverty to really get to the root of these issues. But in the meantime, I'm going to affect what I can affect.
Okay, let's hold it right there. Let's time for a quick break, and we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes.
All right.
I'm Patty Hewitt, and I'm worried about our future.
Last one.
I think about my grandkids and the belief that they deserve every opportunity. And what you deserve, what coastal Georgia deserves, is someone who cares more about their community than about corporate profits and big pharma.
I'll see you later.
All right, thank you. Small business owners and hardworking Georgians are the heart of our community.
Have a good day.
Not CEOs, not lobbyists, not shareholders, but who's taking care of them? It's time to ask yourself, what do you want from your government? This is our year to stand up against what we know is wrong. No more DC politicians invading our home life. No more racism that kills dreams and spreads violence. And no more corporate greed at the expense of workers' rights and our environment.
So what would be the most meaningful help to you?
I've spent the last 8 years working behind the scenes, mobilizing our communities for positive change. And while that is really important work, I can't stand by and allow the same tired politicians to run this country, the same ones who've neglected the real needs of Georgians. I'm ready to take our seat in Congress so I can fight for you and your families.
I vote for you.
Thank you, my darling. I love you. This isn't about party lines. This is about voting for a better future for more Georgians. Enough is enough. I'm Patty Hewitt, and I'm...
All right, we're back, Savannah. We're back. This is the vulnerable community, and Commissioner Whiteley, you started talking about Chatham County Jail. Right now, everybody is wondering what's the condition of the sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard anything?
No, sir. Last I heard that he was, trying to get to his phone. He had made a pretty strong recovery, but that was all I know.
Okay. With the jail being like it is there any? Do you think that the jail is adequately funded?
Yeah, I think so. I think the jail is adequately funded. I also know that there are the challenge that the jail has, amongst others, is staffing, and so because the sheriff's department is short, I want to say triple digits, like over 100 officers. Um, the existing officers have to work a lot of overtime. And so when you look at the budget, you'll see a lot of millions of dollars going towards overtime. And so that's one of their big challenges right now. But excuse me, as it relates to everything else, I do think they are adequately funded. I don't think that the sheriff would not ask for what he wants what he needs. The way that it works, our constitutional officers, we have to give them what they need to carry out their duties as stated in the Constitution. So the sheriff is one of those, the tax commissioner is one of those, the coroner is one of those, the district attorney is one of those. If we don't give them what they need, they can actually sue us. You may remember of a time when Sheriff Al St. Lawrence sued Chatham County for monies that he needed to carry out his mission, if you will, and he won in court. And so with that, this commission does not want to go into court. We want to make sure that our constitutional officers have what they need. And so I like to think that they are adequately funded. Are there other areas where they can improve upon? Yeah, I think so. But at the same time, I'm not in law enforcement, so I try not to be too judgmental on that front, just because there are different nuances in that. I can say that in my term in office, my first year in office, actually, we stopped the budget from going through. The first budget that was presented to me, and part of that was because we wanted to make sure that our district attorney had adequate funding to address the court backlog. Reason being, there were over 70 personnel who had been in jail in the Chatham County Jail for over 1,000 days and had not gone to trial yet. And of those 70, I want to say it was like 78 people at that time. Of those 78, 90% of them were African American. 5% of them or 6% of them were Latino or Latinx, and the rest were white. And, so when I look at it from a dollars and cents perspective, it's roughly about $78 a day to house an inmate at the Chatham County Jail. That's how much you and I spend on that as taxpayers. So that was over $5 million spent on somebody not going to trial. So when we talk about the jail, I don't think we could talk about the jail without talking about the judicial backlog, which has been significantly reduced thanks to our current district attorney and our current judges. But there's some relativity as it relates to the jailhouse and the courts.
Right. Now, when we talk about population within the jail, and you just spoke about it, the population. Mm-hmm. What do you think the mental health population is in there? Because I know we have a lot of people that need mental treatment that are being housed in the jail.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually trying to look because we have been receiving a monthly report on the detainees, which has been something that I really appreciate. But it doesn't have any information as it relates to how many are there for mental health issues. There is one for substance abuse issues, housing status, recidivism rates. But to answer your question, I think that there's a significant number of prisoners or inmates at the jail who are in need of mental health care. And that is why the county has worked with the state commissioner from health commissioner to actually work with Gateway. So now the jail has more mental health care in it. Now, the reality is our jail is the largest provider of mental health care in Chatham County. And that's not unique to Chatham County. The largest provider of mental health care in the country is Cook County Jail, Rikers Island, and LA County Jail. So it is not unheard of for folks to be getting mental health care in the jails. Now, one thing I can say that the county has done is stood up our behavioral health unit. So we have officers who are dedicated to focus only on mental health challenges. During our last commission meeting, we were briefed by one of our officers who talked about that and how there are people who are prescribed medication, but they're not taking the medications, which leading them to disturbances or instances where the police are called out. And so if you come and address it from a police angle, somebody's going to jail and not necessarily getting the help they need. And when they go to jail, we as taxpayers are paying for that. But now with this behavioral health unit, these folks are actually being, the officers are building rapport with these folks. So there's a level of trust. And with that, these folks are getting pointed in the direction of the resources that they truly need. So we actually have a youth mental health facility that's going to be built. It was passed in the last state budget. I think we were given somewhere like 31 million or something like that towards that. So we are going to be building that here locally. We understand that mental health is a big linchpin in our community, and we have to make sure that we're adequately addressing it. And I'm proud to say that Chatham County is a leader in the country as it relates to trying to address mental health from systemic mental health challenges from a government perspective. And so we've received national awards for that, and actually kind of serve as the paradigm or the framework of how other counties across the United States are trying to address mental health.
Great. I tell you, when we talk about the substance abuse and the lack of officers and all like that, it all boils down to one big framework. What we're doing, what can we do to stop us? What's your take on what we need to do to stop the substance abuse and in your wording?
Yes, sir. I think so I personally believe it starts with an unrelenting assault on poverty. We have to fight poverty as if it is the danger to our community that it actually is. There are a lot of nonprofits who are working with folks who are boots on ground, with folks who live in poverty, who experience poverty. We see it a lot in our school system. But until we get to the root of people being able to provide for themselves, until we get to the culture shift of making it okay to, for one to take care of themselves in one way or another, or for one to have a fair job, to have a working wage, we're going to continue to be in this issue. When we look at our workforce, for example, there are so many people. If you go look right now, we're just starting to see fast food jobs paying $15 an hour, $16 an hour. But of course, that's now in the period where inflation is up. So that $15 an hour would have been great 5-10 years ago, but it's not going as far as you wanted to. And so when, I come from a single parent household when I was growing up, my mom, my brother, myself, and my mom worked full time, but we still went without things. And the reality is, if we are giving tax breaks to our super wealthy, if we are sending jobs overseas rather than keeping good paying jobs here in our community, if we are not giving people the ability or the opportunity to work at a job that's going to pay them a fair living wage, then we're going to continue to see these issues. So I think that there has to be a relationship. There is a relationship between the business community and our community at large. And we have to find ways to make sure that, again, the everyday working individual has access to a job that doesn't pay them pennies, but pays them a fair wage so they can receive a paycheck and still have some money left over after paying their bills.
Right now, with the county, what's the county's minimum wage?
Our minimum wage right now is $15.
That's better than
yeah, I think it's 15. Yes, sir. 15 and maybe 12 though. I'm not positive. I know we upped it. Let me see. Yeah, I want to say it's $15 though, because we increased our minimum wage to make us more competitive in the workforce.
Now with Hyundai coming and bringing that big plant here, and they drove the wages up in some of the industry, but they're still having problems getting workers. On the other hand, we have organizations that, like the one I'm a part of, Building Futures. We're here to take students, young people, young adults, and train them to get them into working positions in the workforce. We have been doing this for some time now, and we have been fortunate enough to graduate students from our program who are making a decent living. When I say a decent, I'm talking about six figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's decent living for a person who has a skill. And they don't, when they graduate from the program, they don't have a debt behind them because they earn as they learn.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about a program like that?
Look, I love them. I've actually referred some of my mentees to organizations like that, especially our unions. I know Carpenters Union has some type of program like that. Pipe Fitters Union has programs like that. I think that's huge because, again, what it's doing is creating skilled workers, but also allowing them to make a fair wage. I know a young man who's a success story. I knew him when he was in high school, when I was in the Army. And then when I got out the Army here, his dad got stationed at Fort Stewart. So he moved out here. He actually went to school to become an electrician. And when I first got back in 2014, he was just about to finish school, and he graduated school, then went through the electrician program. Now he's a master electrician. He's gone through all the stuff. I think it's a journeyman.
Yeah, he went from apprentice to a journeyman.
To a journeyman, right? So he's a journeyman now, making very good money, doing very well for himself. And that's just a testament to how these programs, especially with these unions, work. I think that with that being said, though, we in government have to find ways to ensure that our dollars are being spent to support programs like that in one way or another. And what I mean by that, the conundrum that we have is, as stewards of the taxpayers' dollars, we have the responsibility of making sure that the taxpayers' dollars go the furthest, right? So you'll see us normally choose the lowest bid because we don't want to spend the taxpayers' dollars irresponsibly. However, the lowest bid normally does not include some sort of unionized labor. And so what that means, what we have to do is put a greater emphasis on what that means to those employees and what they bring to our community. So one thing I'm proud of that this commission has done, actually this year, we have increased our local minority and women-owned participation goals to not only be definitely the first step in that. Now, the next piece I think is for us to find ways to give more points to local, especially if it's going to be a union or somebody who's providing, again, quality wages, healthcare, and so on and so forth, because we'll get that money back in the long run from a local citizen. But if we're giving a contract to the lowest bidder who may not be from around here, those employees aren't spending much of that money here. So we have to find how to make that gel together and allow us to support organizations or contractors who are paying a fair wage while getting the infrastructure or the capital projects that the county has done.
Like they say, the cheap is not always good,
right?
And a lot of times, you don't think about it when you're looking at the bid at the bid, but you have to think about this person coming from out of town coming in, who they're bringing with them. When you employ our local people, the money stays right here.
Yep.
But on construction sites, you go out there, you can't find Chatham County tags. You find everything from out of town. Mm-hmm. That money is not staying here. That money is leaving. That money is not being spent in Chatham County, in Savannah, Georgia. It's going back home to where they come from. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we need to take a look at in making the bids. I'm a strong union person.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And it's a thing you can't demand. I know y'all can't demand a person to say that they're going to hire union people, but you can ask for certification of your workers. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be a great help in making sure that you got local people working.
Right. No, I agree 100% with that. We've got to find that way to make that work. And I think, some of the metrics that we could use is how much we're spending on the contract versus what we're collecting in sales tax for any given period of time. Because again, when people are making money, they're spending money. And so, no, I agree 100% with you. I want to make sure that we are keeping that money here. That was part of what was behind us changing or increasing the local minority and women-owned business participation, is to make sure that we're keeping Chatham County dollars right here in Chatham County to support our ecosystem. And so going back to our earlier discussion on unrelenting assault on poverty, that's one of the ways that government can play a role in that.
Okay. We have been discussing several different issues today, and we've talked about the presidential election. We've talked about the infrastructure. We've talked about the jail. What about our local election that's coming up?
Absolutely. Well, so the message I will give to everybody, anybody who's watching this, anybody who can hear me, don't stay home. We can't afford to stay home. Democracy is on the ballot. We have a lot of candidates here locally who need your support. I like to think that myself as a candidate is good in that everything I said I was going to do, I've done, and then some. And I look forward to continuing to serve. We need to hold our local elected officials accountable. I have always opened myself to be held accountable. When you look at everybody who's up and down the ballot, we've got a lot of good candidates, and we've got to support them. If we stay home, if we have this voter apathy because of the presidential race, what some may not understand is that those local races are going to have a more direct effect on you sooner than what the presidential race is going to have. So we cannot afford to stay home. Don't stay home. I'm going to ask you to support the Harris campaign and whomever she chooses as her vice president candidate, as well as myself and all the other Democrats down the ticket. Because at this point, if we allow the radical right to get in office and try to push their Project 25 agenda. Again, this is hitting the rewind button on America as it relates to civil rights. It's hitting the rewind button in America as it relates to the modern advances that we've made. So don't stay home. We've got a lot of good people on the ballot, and we need your support.
Have you been contacted? And this is one of these statements that I'm gonna get in trouble with. And of course, I get in trouble all the time. Have you been contacted by the local clergy to an effect to how this is good, how they can help with this election?
Yes, and I actually have a meeting at noon today with the local clergy. So our local clergy is very much in the ball game. I think they understand what's going on. And so, yes, I have been in touch with them on multiple fronts and looking forward to meeting with them shortly after this.
Okay, that's great. That's great. We've been the clergy has been silent for so long. It's time to take a stand. We're gonna take one quick break, and then we're gonna come back and wrap up. So
yes, sir.
we're gonna take this quick break and come back and wrap right back up.
All right.
Hello, I'm Richard Coleman, and I'm running for the office of Sheriff of Chatham County. And when I'm elected, I promise to inspect what I expect. Chatham County, it's time for a change, and that change is me, Richard Coleman.
All right, we're back. We got 7 minutes left, and we're gonna take 4 of those 7 minutes to let you, Commissioner A. Whiteley, wrap up and give us a summation of everything that you said today.
All right. Well, first and foremost, we are excited to see Vice President Harris take on the role as nominee for the Democratic Party in this presidential election. And I hope that you will join me in supporting her and whoever her vice presidential candidate is going to be, because this election is too pivotal for our nation. This election holds democracy on the ballot. You may not like Kamala Harris. You may not like whoever she chooses, but I'm going to tell you, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance do not like you. And it's evidenced by Project 2025. I urge you to go read Project 2025. It's available online, but just some of the things that, is addressed in Project 2025 is doing away with all of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in different institutions, such as the military and other institutions of our nation. We've already seen the state of Florida and other states do away with diversity, equity, and inclusion, ultimately looking to erase African-American history and culture, ultimately looking to hurt those who don't fit their mold. So it's not just a Black thing. This is a people thing. And so if you stay home, you may lead us to dealing with the reversion of so many of the advancements that this administration has done. Never in history have we had this much direct investment in infrastructure for our nation. It's been, or at least it's been a very long time, but the Biden-Harris administration did that. Vice President Harris was part of that, and not one person does any of this alone. So I think they have the team around them to continue to move our nation forward, and we're looking forward to seeing them be victorious in November. Additionally, there are different candidates down the ballot, such as myself, who need your vote. If you live in the 6th district, I hope that you believe that I've served you with dignity and honor, as well as stood up for you in ways that I needed to stand up for you. And I urge you to go to my website, aaronwhiteley.com, AARON, the color white, LY.com, to find out some more under my platform on what I've been able to do as your 6th district commissioner. And as should I be reelected, I promise to continue to lead us, moving us forward and getting things done. Also want to speak to you as the chairman of the Democratic Party of Chatham County. If you consider yourself a Democrat, if you are willing to sign a document that says that you are a Democrat, we want to welcome you to membership in our party. We need your help. We need good people to team, lock arm in arm to make sure that this radical right-wing agenda is not carried out in our nation's capital. We need to team up and lock arm in arm to make sure that we are electing good people here locally, and also working to hold our local elected officials accountable, because none of us should be above that. None of us should feel that we're above being held accountable. So I urge you to get involved with the party, go knock on some doors, go drop off some literature, urge people to register to vote. Last thing I want to say that we didn't really touch on, but please check your voter status. There are direct efforts to remove people from the ballots for various reasons. Excuse me, and it is working. There was a recent challenge of over 900 voters, and of those 900 voters, I believe a little bit over 400 of those voters were removed from the rolls. So please go to my voter page or Google my voter page to check your election status to make sure that you are eligible to vote, because they are trying to swipe people off of the rolls right now. But with that, don't stay home. Everybody needs you, and let's get things going. Oh, what? Oh, hold on, man. You know I love to smoke. Hold on. What was the comment?
It came and went away, but
oh man, because I hope they said lies or something, because I got page numbers. I got page numbers. You go look at that project 2025. You know, I'm telling you that it says dismantle DEI movements in the Air Force, in the Army. They said that the Army was a test bed for wokeness. Oh, it's ugly, boy. But anyway, whoever that was, you know, my number's public. Happy to talk to you. My pull-up game is strong. I'm happy to talk to you in person too.
Well,
thank you,
we're
Mr.
glad
Oman.
to have you. We've been blessed to have Commissioner A. Whiteley with us. Next week, it is going to be on, y'all. It is going to be on. We got two tremendous women coming on next week. We have Miss Fanika Miller out of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Amanda Hollowell. Both of them will be on here, and we're going to have a tremendous show next week. And we're getting ready to. I'm gonna put on my pads because they're gonna try to beat on me, but I'm gonna whoop on them this time. Yes, so y'all, we all look for y'all back next week. Same time, 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, right here on Our Black Media Network. So,
yes, sir.
Keep watching and keep looking. We're here 24 hours. Watch us. See y'all next week. Goodbye now.
better.